Oh dear, I've got far too much power at my fingertips.
Yeah. I know that I don't have this power.
Well, you could kind of reach over and randomly press buttons.
It doesn't feel very democratic, Ian.
It's not. Do you know,
It's not.
One of the buttons on here is actually this one here, does ducking. So it basically makes my voice only cut over the tops of everybody else.
Sounds like the toolkit of a despot.
Yes, although perhaps a despot with rather a limited remit. Be useful in meetings.
Okay, a tin pot despot.
A tin pot despot. I'm not sure I like the idea of me being a tin pot despot.
I didn't mean to accuse you of anything. But it just came out that way.
Yes, you didn't mean to. It just happened. Fair enough.
Do we have room for any announcements?
Well, we always have room for announcements, especially from you.
Okay.
Tell us your announcements.
So the Leeds testing atelier was last week, without wishing to date the podcast in any way, the 23rd of April. Oh, I've dated it. Oh, well. It's not a deadline, it's a pre-deadline.
The Leeds atelier was recently.
Recently.
The Leeds testing atelier happened recently.
It did. So it's at a place called Wharf Chambers, which is a social club and cooperative and music venue. And we had 14 speakers, I think, this time.
That's a packed programme. It's just really one day, isn't it?
Yeah. So 2 tracks, 14 speakers, and the feedback's been really good. Everyone had a really nice time.
Well, I have been a couple of times, and I would recommend it to anyone.
So we're wrestling with the usual...
You didn't have wrestling when I went.
No.
Is that a new innovation?
Yeah.
Is that one of the tracks?
The venue is not big enough. It's probably not accessible enough. Too many stairs. So everyone's like, you need a new venue, but we love the venue. So I don't know what to do, but it's the perennial post-testing atelier question. What do we do?
But surely there's not a million venues that are suitable in Leeds, are there?
No. And certainly not that don't cost the
First Direct Arena.
Tens of thousands of pounds to hire for the day. So I don't know what we'll do, but I like having it at Wharf Chambers. It seems like the right place to me.
It does have a suitably anarchic feel to it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you think testers are all anarchists, don't you? Organisational anarchists.
Yeah, maybe it's just the ones I know.
You know the right ones.
I do.
Well, was it Anna Bayek who said to test better, one needs to make the organisation better?
Yes, it was.
Very wise.
Indeed.
So yeah, the atelier went great. Everyone was happy. We had a good day. And we'll do it all again sometime. Not yet.
Not yet.
No.
Well, roll up, whoever you are, and watch on LinkedIn carefully for the announcement for the next Leeds testing atelier, which I won't ask Ash for a deadline for.
No deadlines. Have you got anything noteworthy, Ian?
Have I got anything noteworthy? Been working on other podcasts.
How dare you?
I know.
How do you have time for that? Oh, you don't.
I don't. Yes. I just do it instead of paid work.
You always prioritise the unpaid work over the paid work.
I've started a podcast with Esther Abramson of Ilkley. We've started a podcast called Manifesting Agency.
Oh,
which is a very baffling name.
I was going to say.
Which was the
one
was
that AI generated?
It wasn't, no. The main justification for picking that over another name was that the domain name was available. So literally the website for it is manifesting.agency.
Does it have the words delve and treasure trove on the
No,
on the website?
It doesn't have any of ChatGPT's favourite words on the website. But the point of it is it's an interview podcast where we're going to interview people who get shit done.
Yeah, right.
Not to put too fine a point on it. That's its kind of tagline. We sort of had an explanatory episode between ourselves, but we're probably about to release the first interview, so it's quite cool. Exciting actually. So we'll see. And you're on our hit list actually because of the atelier.
Oh yeah, we do get that done.
You get that done.
We've literally just done it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've got it done.
We got it done.
But you also got the first one done.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting one, isn't it? It's the one where there was nothing and how you came. Anyway, I think that could be an interesting story. So, yes, we may be coming to you at some point.
Okay.
And inviting you to come on there.
Yeah. I'll always talk about the Atelier. I do love it dearly.
It seems as though my other podcast endeavour, Days, is coming back, which is the least SEO-friendly podcast name you can imagine. And you've got literally no hope of finding it on any podcast directory. So you'd have to go to dayspodcast.com to find it.
Right.
And it's much, much sillier than even this. And it's basically talking about awareness days with whoever will talk to us about them,
Right, okay.
whether or not they're qualified in any way. But the high point of that was that episode 1 was World Chocolate Day. And my co-host Amanda, who works in PR, managed to get free chocolate for us, which we ate and then interviewed the maker of the chocolate. And that was great. And I had this vision that the podcast would continue on with us getting free stuff, but she never repeated the feat of the free stuff. And it's had a massive break, but we're starting it again on Star Wars Day, which has just recently happened. See what I did there?
Oh.
So things.
So who's going to say it? In the interest of fairness, can you remember who went first last time? 'Cause I don't think I can remember.
We have the records.
We're going into the archives.
I'm just going into... That's exactly what I'm doing now. I'm going into the archives.
Brushing away the cobwebs.
It was career paths for testing specialists and XZ security issue.
Okay. Well, it sounds like in the interest of fairness then, you should go first this time, given my premier spot at the last podcast.
Premier spot, yes. Well, honestly, it's only fair.
It is only fair.
So, as usual, I feel like I tend to come up with things, at least in this latest incarnation of this, that are quite broad and go in odd directions. But normally they start somewhere in technology. And on this occasion, I seem to have departed a bit from what we might call our wheelhouse. But I feel as though it actually has a kind of bearing. So let me talk about it for a bit, and then we can decide if I'm out of my mind bringing this up on
this time.
What a lot of things. Yeah, as opposed to the extremely sane version of myself that normally rocks up to these things. So my thing is entitled rather broadly, Local Democracy. And this was inspired because there's this year in the UK, there's lots of local elections. And if you... and it's tomorrow.
You can't help it but bind it to a time. It's difficult, isn't it?
It is difficult. So there's been local elections.
Stop. Let's not turn the podcast into a time machine. People will be like, what day is this? I don't know.
No.
Oh, it's a week last Tuesday. Tomorrow.
So this month in the UK, there's local elections. And this is sort of harking me back to a year ago when there was also local elections in May.
Yeah.
And I stood in those elections for the town council in Ilkley. And quite a lot of people voted for me, but not enough for me to get elected, which is a mixed feelings about, because we've had quite a year in the politics of this town, and it might have been quite uncomfortable.
Yeah, I imagine
elected.
A whole vista of commitments probably opens up once you're actually in it, right?
Yeah.
Beyond the campaigning for the initial being in it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of committees and meetings, and despite what we may have thought, given what happened during COVID, it's actually illegal to have remote attendees at council meetings. They have to be in there.
Oh, right, okay.
attending the physical meeting. So it's quite complicated. But so what had happened was a year ago was that Ilkley Town Council's got 14 seats, and it became clear that 4 of them would be uncontested,
right?
And the local Conservatives would just walk them, and that kind of upset me. And this has not ever been something before that I've considered I could do. But for some reason, and probably due to the company I keep, it suddenly seemed like a good idea. So we set up a sort of group of independent councillors, and we stood for election. There were 4 of us. I made a website because I'm the nerd.
That's the ultimate contribution.
It is, and it was very good. It had green lighthouse scores across the board.
I thought you were going to get that in.
I have to get that in.
Yeah. Speedy, accessible.
Yes, it was. Yes, yeah. It was very good. Yeah. I was very proud of it. And it was almost irrelevant to anything, but I liked it. But I suppose the reason I've kind of brought up this as a thing is that actually anyone can do that.
Yeah.
You can decide to stand for your local council. Another thing that inspired me, aside from my irritation at the undemocratic version of the world where people are elected unopposed, is that I read this book by a chap called Peter McFadden, who had been the mayor in Frome in Somerset. He and some people he got together with basically threw the political parties out of the council by getting elected a large group of independent councillors.
Yeah.
He's basically raising the idea that maybe political parties, while I'm sure they have many useful virtues, are not actually very constructive at the bottom level of local government in your town or parish council or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they basically stood against all of the sort of these incumbents who'd been there for years and took the council over. And then they really reformed how it worked and made it much more engaged with the people in the town. Yeah. And they did a lot of really good things. And I got a bit inspired by that, actually. So there's a few different things that you learn doing this. And one of them is that there's some really funny rules. Like anything you do, you have to keep a record of all the money you spend and submit election expenses afterwards. Right. And there's limits to what you can spend, which we never came close to them, because I think they're aimed at stopping rich political parties from buying elections, basically.
Yeah.
And on the website, you have to say who's promoting the grouping.
Yeah.
We actually had some leaflets, and the local Green Party helped us deliver them. They were really lovely about it, actually. Yeah. And I think they quite appreciated what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
But
I think there's probably some knowledge barriers there as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, how to do that and what to put on them and what makes it, legal and isn't going to get you into trouble.
Well, exactly. And that's a huge thing straight away, is that you have to put on them. So there are words that have to be on them.
Yeah.
And even if they're slightly wrong, then if you were to win, then the political parties would be looking at suing you under electoral law and having the result nullified.
Yeah. So I guess that might be a barrier to, getting involved, because there's a lot of, like you say, rules which to some might seem antiquated or difficult to comprehend and make into and just general discouragement to getting involved.
Yeah. Yeah. And hilariously, we all sort of had this theory that we'd be elected and then we would do this and do that. And then only one of us got elected. So he's been on his own in the council ever since then.
By then.
But he's now actually, this year, he's the deputy mayor. So it's been interesting how that's come about. But it's less, I suppose it's less relevant. I think why I'm saying this is because I think more people should think about doing this. And I feel as though if we'd start, we started in April and the election was in May, so there was no time to...
That sounds like
to
just
do a
in
lot
time
of things.
work to me.
Yes. Well, it took that long before I realised that there would be this gap in who was standing.
Yeah.
And I just thought, oh no, we've got to do something about this. But if we'd started earlier and had more of a run up, I think we might have had a good chance of having an influence in the local sort of decision making. The town council can set a small level of taxation in addition to the council tax that gets put on top of and gets provided to it. So it has some kind of budget. The great thing is that councillors can do anything that any person can do. So they can start things. They're in a good position to sort of show leadership in local towns and communities. And that actually shouldn't be underestimated, because there's nothing really that there are a bunch of funny rules. And in fact, all these councils have a town clerk or somebody whose main job it is to explain to the councillors what's legal and what isn't.
Yeah.
And there's that hilarious video, isn't there, of the famous Handsforth parish council meeting.
You have no power here.
Yeah. Where the indomitable Jackie Weaver ejected people from the Zoom meeting with great aplomb. It is a marvellous thing. We'll include a link to it. But it's very funny. Councils need somebody. Councillors are just like regular people, and they need somebody to explain, what they're allowed to do and how things what things are a legal requirement, and maybe what other things are more of convention.
Yeah.
But what they did in Frome was quite revolutionary there, and I think they made their council much better. And I think we could do that here. And I think that other people who might be listening to this could do it in their communities as well.
Yeah.
And of course, the big downside is it's very time consuming.
Yeah. Because one of the notes that I put on was that local democracy seems somewhat like entertainment for the retired from the outside. So if you have an ongoing career which takes up a lot of your time and maybe a family, then it might be hard to fit such things around all those other responsibilities, which I guess that's probably always been a challenge, isn't it, for local democracy and getting local people involved, because we're all very busy.
Yes, and that's absolutely the case. And, people who take on leading roles in these things. So the mayor of Ilkley, up until the end of the last council, was a working person. Yeah. And, he stood down, I think, frankly, because he was tired.
Yeah.
And, it's hard work.
Yeah, there's only so many things you can fit into life.
There is, yes. But I think that for some people, there is a level of community-mindedness that some people have got.
Yeah.
You, for example, you help put the atelier on for that community of testers. And somebody else might feel community minded in the town they're in and feel like, and I would love it if people who listen to this sort of thought, actually, let's try and get together and sort this out. Let's try and get national politics out of local councils.
Yeah.
It's not great that councillors are standing up parroting stuff that is coming from Westminster
the
or
parliamentary
central office.
parties, basically. Yeah. So what was your experience of running and then being on the social media side? So I assume you said things on social media like, I am running for a local councillor.
Yeah, I did. But honestly, nobody's very interested.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I am appearing in the latest Lord of the Rings film as Gandalf. That's the sort of thing that people will be interested in.
Well, if you would have put a picture of yourself as Gandalf saying that you're running for local councillor, well, you probably would have got a lot more votes, wouldn't you?
Yes, and I could have said an election arrives. Exactly what it means to. But yeah, I suppose it's not that interesting. And I think a lot of people think it's pointless.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's pointless.
So do you get that sense of apathy? It's like, well, why would you do that?
Yeah. I mean, if you ask people what council wards they live in, most people don't know.
No.
They don't even know. They just and maybe when they go to the box, even if they vote, which most people, I think, don't in those elections. Even if they make it there, they're probably just ticking the political party that they wish to promote, or maybe just not ticking the one that they wish to punish.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And, people say local elections are just a popularity contest to see if people like the government in Westminster or whatever. But I feel like there's a real opportunity to do good in that. And that for some people, it will be worth it. And for me, it took me years. It never occurred to me I might be someone who would be able to do that. And I did it. And actually, I feel as though it was the right thing to do.
Yeah. I guess you see lots of career politicians, don't you? Which, again...
not on local councils. But
not on local councils, but in general, politics as a career, which to me always makes me think of not getting involved.
Red flag.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like, what can I as a citizen do about this? Because I don't want a career in politics.
No.
I like my career.
Yes.
So
I think most people in this country anyway would say they don't trust or like politicians.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, at the heart of it is that actually it would be better if there were no politicians on local councils.
Yeah.
And
so just interested, engaged local people.
Yeah.
Who want to make things better.
Yeah. In a pragmatic way.
Yeah.
Not necessarily an ideological way.
Yeah. Because there is this phenomenon of people pretending to be independents, but it's like, well, you are Labour or Conservative.
Yeah, you
know,
thrown
to
out
your core.
Thrown out of your political party.
Yeah, absolutely. But you can stand as an independent, no problem.
And you also get brochures through the door, as we've seen this month for the local election.
Yeah.
Where it appears that it's one party's brochure, but if you look in the small print at the bottom, it says promoted by so-and-so and so-and-so on behalf of, naming no names, a person. And you think, well, that's not them. These things that look like fake, that look like newspapers, but are political. There's all sorts of shenanigans that goes on, and that all is paid for by centrally funded political parties.
Yeah,
from donor money and all the rest of it. And it would be just, I feel as though maybe this thing might have been a bit too vague.
Well, I guess so. You've got arcane rules, which might put people off. Career politicians, and then the shenanigans that we've just described, where you obfuscate over who you really, really are, or maybe put it in a small corner in the bottom left of the leaflet, which you'd have to put your best reading glasses on to see.
Yes.
So there's all that which helps to sort of put people off, standing for in local democratic elections, or even voting in them. Let's be brutally honest.
Yeah.
And maybe, like I say, on social media, people are less engaged, less interested in, it's kind of met with a shrug, what you're doing, really. But I guess with your example, it's even though 1 out of the 4 got elected and you got X number of votes, it still changed the dynamic of the council, didn't it?
Actually, it did. And one of the things that happened when the votes were all counted, the town council was split into 2 evenly sized groups.
Yeah.
And one of the groups was the Conservative councillors, which was half of it. And then the other group tends to, I think, refer to itself as the Progressive councillors, which was basically composed of a Green councillor, some Labour councillors, a Lib Dem. I'm trying not to miss anybody out.
It's okay, you don't have to get it.
And
the other party.
And an independent.
Yeah.
Who's dropped into this by his foolish agreement to join
without his contemporaries who joined it with him.
It was evenly split, and so what happens is that each side nominated a person to be mayor, but there were 7. It was 7-7.
Yeah,
and the way that it works was the outgoing mayor had a casting vote, and he cast that casting vote according to the popular vote in the town. So he said, well, more people voted for progressive parties than for the Conservatives. Yeah. And therefore his casting vote was cast to so we have Ilkley's first Labour mayor. But his rationale and his ability to democratically do that was founded on the fact that if the votes that the three of us who didn't get elected had not been cast, then it would have been the other way around.
Yeah.
And he would have had no mandate to choose the progressive mayor. So it did actually make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think about technologists and democracy, like from a wider point of view, technology and democracy in elections, obviously there's a lot of fear there as well, isn't there, about what technology can do in terms of influencing elections.
Yeah.
Obviously that tends to be at the national, the general elections in the UK and, national elections in whatever they're called in other countries. So I think, to me, technology should be a force for transparency within elections.
Yeah.
So you should be able to see who's backing who and who's paying for what, whoever the donors are to individual parties or candidates or whoever it is. Because there's one thing, it might be within the current rules, but whether or not it's ethical or correct or not influencing a person or a process in a way that it shouldn't be is a different thing. So it's I think technology could be good from a transparency point of view, but I think it's the influence of technology is generally feared because it's trying to change the results, not give you all the information you need in order to either A, vote, or B, actually become engaged in the process and start to, stand and understand what your responsibilities would be and what all the various rules and processes are around what you're standing for.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of, like say you have a town clerk to explain all these things, which suggests that it's quite impenetrable if you have to have a dedicated role to it, to explain it.
Well, it's not so much that it's impenetrable.
I think
it's more of a breadth than a depth of knowledge. It's kind of understanding the procedures and the processes and rather than having to look things up every time, have someone there to advise. And that is really important.
Yeah.
But this kind of reminds me, maybe we can finish on nerdiness anyway, is that I have started a project, which I'm doing quite slowly, but I'm getting there. Unpaid. Such will be my undoing. But I'm making I'm priming an AI chatbot with the council's minutes and committee agendas and all of the documentation that it produces, so that people will be able to ask, what does the council think about this?
Yeah.
How did the council vote on that? When was this decided on?
Yeah.
And get an answer based on the actual sort of documentation rather than people's assertions, politically weighted assertions about how things happened.
Yeah, because for the most part, everything's minuted and recorded because that's the way it must be.
Yes.
So it's actually quite a rich source of information, but you will only ever see it at the time. At the moment, if you just see a document, it's just a document of a particular point in time on an issue, isn't it? Whereas, with a language model behind it, you could say, well, tell me the story of this. Tell me how this particular, over the course of the last year, how has the council's thinking on this issue, whatever it is, evolved? So you get a very different point of view rather than just trying to see from a point in time, from a document that you find on the town council website and try and infer how they got to where they got to.
And I think that's kind of where I'm at with it, what I'm trying to do. But it's proving a bit of a challenge, given that minutes, half the time the dates are backwards as well. So there's dates are recorded as there's one that was 23. What did it say? It was basically the 4th of December 2023.
All right.
But it sounded like, because it was backwards, it was the 23rd of December 2004. So I've had to sort of take some measures to make sure that there's metadata with the files and things like that, so that it knows when things happened. But I am sort of getting to the point now, I can I've opened it up so I can type in, what is the council doing about food poverty? And back comes an answer. Ilkley Town Council has taken several steps to address food poverty within the community, and then it makes a list and a grant allocation for food parcels. On the 4th of December 2023, yes, the council resolved to provide a grant of £3,640 to the Great Ilkley Get-Together towards the cost of providing food parcels at Christmas to 182 families.
Right.
So straight away, I probably could have found that out using Google or something. But this is a lot clearer way to do that. And it talks about commitments to support and promote things, and it talks about the council having set from 2024 to 5 and continuing till 2028. The council has resolved to create a regular annual budget of £8,000 per annum to address this. So you're sort of looking at that thinking, well, that's really good.
Yeah.
And it actually, that's the kind of thing that I think citizens would want to be able to ask about.
So it's a mix of what have we done and what the plans are for the future, which might be spread across multiple documents if you just went to look for it yourself.
For sure, yeah.
So
it's not there yet, but when it is, maybe I'll share a link to it.
Cool.
Anyway, that was my slightly bizarro, left field, mad thing. But I would be very interested to hear from anyone listening who has considered doing something like that before or done it.
Yeah.
Let's hear some experiences. So I'll include a link to the Flat Pack Democracy books that Peter McFadden wrote. Have a look. Think about doing something in your town next time your local council has got an election.
Okay.
I'm going to say that was my thing.
Nice thing.
Was it?
It was.
Was it an insane thing?
Well, it might have been slightly insane, but they don't all have to be, like mine, articles from Wired.
Well, we need the articles from Wired.
Yeah, there's something to be said for a nice mix.
There
I
is,
think.
isn't there?
Yeah, definitely.
Are we going to do one of our interludes now?
Yes.
Do I have to fall off my chair, or can we do something different?
Well, I guess we can do something different.
I think we're about to have 3 episodes in a row that have come out on a regular cadence.
Yeah.
Very scary altogether.
Well, I guess it's something that I've preached throughout my technology career, as to release on a regular basis, and then not done that for this podcast. we have been a little bit irregular. Yeah.
I mean, we'd have to own it and say,
yeah,
our regularity has not been.
Yeah, but I think the expectations that we set contributed to the irregularity. So whereas we've tried a different, trying to get ahead of the number of episodes that
we're trying to achieve flow.
Yeah.
In our virtual podcast factory, we won't have big piles of anything in front of any of the stations.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if this analogy is going to implode at some point.
So no deadlines. Just flow, yeah.
Just flow.
Just keep it moving. And to be fair, that is one of the key things, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think with delivering anything, you need to keep it moving.
Yes.
We're like sharks. The moment that we stop, we begin to flounder.
We have a nap for 2 years at a time or something. Is that what sharks do when they stop?
Yeah, pretty much. So, I think for us, the key thing is continuous movement.
Yes.
Even if it's sometimes fast, sometimes slower, but never stop.
I'm enjoying our current approach. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the feeling that we're on top of it, and yet it's delivering the kind of regularity that podcast audiences apparently really want, which is why half of you have buggered off. In our gap between 2022 and 2024.
To be fair, we've not been very reliable, have we?
No, we haven't.
No.
This is a new era for us of reliability.
Shows we can learn.
We can learn.
Yeah.
Maybe we will. Oh, dear.
So we'll call that a learning interlude.
That was a learning interlude.
Yeah.
Yes. I think we need to get some music for our interludes.
Music we could use.
Yeah. I'm looking... sadly, at the music we can't use. Maybe we could sing it We're not going to sing it, are we?
No, because we still can't use it. Oh, I don't know, actually.
We might have to pay royalties, but we'd be allowed to use it if we sung it.
Maybe we could do a rendition of it.
So, Ash, save us from this conversational precipice and share with us the thing which we are going to be now talking about.
So I have brought a thing which is like the antithesis of Ian's vague things about local democracy, which is a classic what a lot of things thing, where I say, I spotted an article in Wired / The Register / Guardian Technology, whatever the publication is. But this one was in Wired. But it caught my eye because it means that I can continue my crusade against TikTok. Well, that's what it means to me anyway. So that's why I picked it. And
of course, you would not find any fault with, for example, Mastodon, from what you've read in this.
Yeah, although I suppose they're in the same class because I've never used either of them. So apparently I just attack TikTok from the outside looking in like a...
You fling the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune at it.
Yeah, exactly.
From a distance.
Exactly.
Or
while haughtily refusing to engage with it.
I think that's probably wise.
Yeah. So my thing is the backlash against the algorithm in social media.
But is there one?
So perhaps the article has done some manufacturing there.
Well,
in order to draw me in.
Is there like a continuum? So the most extreme version, you append gate to the name.
Oh yeah,
and then further in, it's like a backlash, and then in the middle, it's like some people were slightly irritated, and then it goes the other way.
Yeah. So I think
is there a scale?
I think for most people, it's probably in the slightly irritated category.
But for some people, it's algorithm gate.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess that's part of the complexity of the question, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So,
Algo gate.
So essentially, the article was it either knows you a little bit too well, or is total rubbish. So that again then adds another layer of complexity because again, you've got a continuum of people who are annoyed about it or not. And then you've got what are they particularly annoyed about the algorithm, that it's too creepy, as in it knows far too much about you, or just knows absolutely nothing about you and recommends you things that you're like, excuse me, I've never even thought about that.
Because I find this fascinating because I am a rejecter of cookies. Whenever anybody says, do you want to be tracked? I always say no. And
why would I?
Well, but the thing is, I think that's the question. Because I don't think not being tracked reduces the ads you see.
Yeah.
It just reduces the relevance of them.
Yeah.
So people like me, and presumably you, who are very good at not being tracked, we probably get the worst, most annoying crap of the ads. And it's started to nag at my brain a little bit. Maybe I should be playing this game a bit more than I do. Maybe I should let some things track me, just so that I can not have ads for things that are just entirely nonsense.
So, guess from my introduction, who's at the top of the list of the most terrifying algorithm?
Is it TikTok?
It is TikTok. It is TikTok. So
I'm not sure how I managed to guess that from such a wide field of.
So TikTok, they apparently after about an hour or so of watching videos, they've got a good handle on what you like and what you don't, based on either what you rewatch or what you linger on. So it's not even that you've seen you don't need to see the whole thing. You just need to linger on it for a little while, and that gives it a little, oh yeah, you're quite into that, are you?
That's a bit of raw. There's a gap, isn't there, between what people say they're interested in and what they're actually interested in. And there's nowhere to hide with that, is there?
No. So it's going to start to give you more of what you want after about an hour or so. Or advert.
Yes.
So basically, on TikTok, according to, the Wall Street Journal did a study using bots, though, which TikTok then said, well, they're not representative of real people. Well, no, because they're bots.
Yes, we didn't want to experiment on real people.
Yeah, because that's wrong, isn't it? So yeah, you either get algorithm-driven content, as in stuff you haven't searched for, or you get adverts after about an hour or so. And after an hour or so, they pretty much know, like, have a good idea about what you're into. And so it targets quickly.
Do you think that's over and above what other ones do? I mean, are they evil geniuses, or are they just, we don't like them very much, but they're no more geniuses than Meta or Google or whoever?
So 70% of YouTube videos are from recommendation that are watched. So it's very rare. I'm a searcher. I'll search for things. Whereas that's for the vast majority of views, that's not the case. People will just take the recommendations. So I guess that's an interesting habit as well, isn't it? To take the recommendations or not. I'm not saying I always search. Sometimes I will just take the top off the feed and watch it if it's interesting enough.
Have you come across CGP Grey?
Yes.
On YouTube. So I really like his stuff. And actually I listen to Cortex, which is a podcast he does with Mike Hurley, where he talks a lot about the sort of creative process and the way that he works, and it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
But he released a video recently which completely goes against the algorithm, and it's not even one video. So he released a rock paper scissors game on YouTube where you play rock paper scissors. Only one of the videos is listed, and it's really short.
Right.
And then it leads into this massive network of unlisted videos, depending on the outcomes of the...
Oh, wow.
It's an incredible project.
Yeah.
But the algorithm hates it. Absolutely hates it.
Yeah.
And, he's got a Patreon that pays for him to do stuff. So that's how he can get away with it. But if he was dependent on YouTube for his income from it, I think it would have been not a very good...
Yeah.
Not a very good bet.
Yes, you can't monetize that particularly. You can't fill that with adverts particularly easily, can you?
No. So it was just interesting to me because that was an example of somebody doing something that was basically almost against the grain of the algorithm just for the value of doing the thing.
Yeah.
We'll put a link to it. I would recommend anyone to have a go at it because actually it's like an iceberg.
Yeah.
And it is really, really interesting.
Yeah. So YouTube suggests sometimes what I consider to be strange things to me. So there's a person called Jordan Peterson who is a sort of, from what I know, he's some kind of pseudo philosopher who says things to shock.
He's a psychologist, isn't he, by training?
Right. Okay.
But yeah,
there's a lot of like base misogyny and other things that he says, I think, in order to stir reaction is like a reactionary. That's how he seems to me anyway. Sometimes YouTube will recommend him to me. I often wonder, where did that come from?
So have you successfully concealed from YouTube what you're interested in?
Well, no, because I watch YouTube quite a lot. And I think I watch videos about video games, and there must be something in their algorithm that has brought this video closer to my, to the surface for me. So I don't know if there's a connection between people who watch video games, news on YouTube, and people who connect with Jordan Peterson. Not everyone's the same, but yeah. So maybe it's that, but I don't know.
Too, by the way,
yeah. So I don't know but it might just be a generic based on the number of likes and subscribes a person has. It might just bubble it to the top of everyone's feed, and you get it regardless. But it's not transparent how it got there for me.
No.
But I told it not to show it to me anymore. So, and then YouTube Music. I always find YouTube Music really interesting because it generally suggests the same things that I always listen to and never really suggests anything new, which keeps me listening to music from the 80s and 90s over and over again. But again, how much of that is algorithm and how much of that is my behaviour as well is interesting.
What I've done is I've just gone on YouTube and gone into my settings and looked at privacy. And one of the things that struck me is that YouTube There is a why have you recommended this thing that there's sometimes there. Have you tried that?
I remember that was on Twitter, X, whatever.
Is it not on? Have I imagined it on being on? Oh, it's only on ads, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's not
Why
on
am
videos.
I seeing this ad? It's not. Yeah, it's not recommendations because I started paying again for YouTube.
Yeah.
To get out of the ads because I hate them so much.
Yeah. As part of this article, it highlights a couple of algorithm-free social media applications. So there's one called pi.fyi, which started out as a curated newsletter, and then now apparently it's like a newsletter curated by everybody. So you can ask for recommendations on whatever you like, and they will you will crowdsource a recommendation for whatever it is that you want to do, a restaurant you want to eat at, or whatever it is, rather than an algorithm bubbling up to the surface for you based on, number of reviews, how much that restaurant has spent in ad revenue on that platform, all those things. And then there's another one called Spread as well, which interestingly has authentication by design. So as in, it says it's real people only, so you have to get verified.
Mm-hmm.
Like you do on LinkedIn. You can do on LinkedIn, which I thought was quite interesting. And it's anti-user generated content, so there's no likes or upvotes or anything like that. So you can't fake your, bubble something to the top based on
likes
and comments,
bot farms,
whatever it is. So
I might have to join this one.
Yeah, so it's kind of.
Are you thinking about that, Ash? Are you considering?
Well, I don't know. I try not to be hasty when it comes to social media platforms now. After working for a startup which wanted to be a social media platform and signing up for all of them to see what they were all like. And then having to unpick that mess later on in life was probably, probably like a healthy pause before joining a social media platform is a reasonable shout, I think.
I will keep campaigning quietly in the background for Mastodon.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep up the gentle peer pressure. When Ian was running for local council, there was also a gentle peer pressure for me to also do so. And then you got my partner Gwen involved as well, didn't you? And you were both sort of.
I thought Gwen was very helpful in pointing out the advantages of your being on the local council.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you could have done it and then not got elected. So you get the benefit of both worlds. Then you showed willing, but sadly, the electorate wasn't quite enough there to.
So yeah, you've got these two platforms. I don't know whether I should say platforms or not. Apps, because platforms like a trendy thing, isn't it?
I think we know. I think it's a fair.
Is it fair?
It's a platform, is what you build things on, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a bit. Yeah,
it feels a bit like I'm just calling
tech bro-y.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the other interesting thing that I found was there was a company called, well, not a company, it's a part of a university, and they're doing something called Pro-Social, and they're designing algorithms which are more for the social good rather than the commercial good.
Ooh,
or the
radical.
Yeah, not based on ad spend, but more based on like how people have engaged with with posts. So they're running a competition to design a Chrome plugin which will interact with Reddit, X, and Facebook. And then you will obviously go to the site, run the plugin, and it will sort it based on the algorithm they've come up with. So there's like a competition open for that.
Oh, interesting.
At the same time. So I thought that was quite interesting to see what people might come up with. Because I think one of the challenges as well is that the algorithm lives in the shadows, doesn't it? Because it's one of the more valuable bits of technology, bits of code on a social media site, isn't it?
But it's also, everybody wants to game it, don't they?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to make the algorithm promote their thing and at the expense of some other thing.
Yeah.
And so if they explain what it is and how it works...
Yeah, it'll just be immediately...
mayhem.
Every video will have
Exactly that.
Yeah, exactly. So, make sure to tap the screen if you support whatever the cause is, which is nothing to do with supporting the cause. It's just about making sure that you tap the screen and, give it a like or whatever it is. So there is that kind of that lack of transparency there as well. And it's not just social media either, is it? It's, you go onto e-commerce sites, they're very algorithm heavy as well, aren't they? Based on reviews and all that other type.
The thing is that there's some value in these things as well. Yeah. And maybe it's just conceptual value from the very beginning of them. But on an e-commerce site, it's helpful to me to see things that I want to buy.
Yeah.
And on social media sites, it's helpful for me to see things I'm interested in that come from people that I care about. So I might want to follow 150, 300, some large number of people. And maybe some of those are more important to me than others.
Yeah.
And it would be nice if the algorithm would, prioritise posts from the people I'm more interested in hearing from. But, that's kind of where they started. But
yeah. So the pro-social people say that we would like a better way to design algorithms with a bit more transparency because there is so much stuff. And the problem is with simple algorithms or simple feed sorting is that you're likely to miss anything that means anything to you, which I thought was quite an interesting point. So they're not saying we shouldn't have them at all. It shouldn't just be, everything that's happened sorted by date in a list.
But you see, Twitter solved this early on with Twitter lists.
Yeah.
So what you could do was that you would follow all the people that you wanted to follow, but then you might make a smaller list that you would keep to yourself, but that was the one that you would read first, and then you'd only read the big one if you had time afterwards, kind of thing. And that kind of delivered some of that.
Is that a paid feature now?
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But again, that's like an interesting device, isn't it? To help you to negotiate the sheer amount of stuff. So that's like a good tool, isn't it? To do the stuff filtering, because otherwise it's just a drowning, isn't it?
But I think it's also a tool that a lot of people wouldn't find out about or wouldn't be bothered to use.
Yeah.
Because obviously deciding on who's going to be in your list and curating it and keeping it up to date is work, and people are not prepared to do that.
Yeah. So the pro-social people were like, if you have very simple feeds, just show you, like, it promotes recency bias, so you literally only, especially with something like X, where it just scrolls past in an instant, you would miss a lot of stuff that might have meaning to you. And then it enables spam as well, because if you're just in a simple sorted by date list, then if spammers or bots or whatever make it into your feed, then they will drown.
They will make sure it's full of what they want you to see.
Yeah, exactly. So there's some really, like, so by using an algorithm, you can lessen the impact of that, because we should probably be grown up about these things and say usually bots will end up on sites some way or another. They generally do, but they might not stay there for long, but maybe long enough in order to fill everyone's feed with nonsense.
Yeah, well, often the objective is very short term anyway.
So I don't know if it's about a wholesale rejection of algorithms, because it's a bit old man yells at cloud, isn't it?
What a great analogy! But what is the value in them for end users as opposed to for companies or platforms? Yeah.
So I think that's like the salient point, isn't it? It's probably gone too far, like the other way.
And shitification.
Exactly. So, as a non-Facebook user, whenever I see someone's Facebook feed, I'm amazed at the lack of people they know on it and the number of, cat videos and AI-generated images, which are now a mainstay of like Facebook feeds. So the actual purpose of the app is totally different to what it used to be. As a friend and family connector, it is now something else completely.
Yeah, it feels that way.
Yeah. So, which again, I have the suspicion that, like you say, the algorithm has gone too far one way and is not there for the benefit of the user of the application. It's there for the benefit of someone else.
Yeah. Well, I think it's classic shittification.
Yeah.
As described by Cory Doctorow.
Yeah. So yeah, algorithms, not necessarily bad, but as ever with most of the technologies that humans invent, it depends how you use them.
And probably ultimately inevitably bad if they're on commercial platforms.
Yeah.
Which is why Mastodon is so great. Because it's federated and no one person owns it.
No one pulling the strings, eh?
But yes, I'm certainly going to have a look at these two things that you've identified there, because I think also I can't bear not to be on a thing when I've heard of it, apparently, because I'm insane. But I think it's interesting to see the experiments that people are doing to try and fix this.
Yeah.
And people do want to be connected, and they do want to have, be able to keep up with each other. With who they want to. They want to know what's going on with people. They don't necessarily want ads, and they don't necessarily want random stuff.
Yeah.
It's been manipulated into their feeds by populists or other undesirables.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing has a nice blend of algorithm denialists designing their own applications to say no algorithms.
Yes.
Only humans involved. And then in the middle you've got academics are saying, well, actually, algorithms can be really useful. Just depends how we do them. And they can actually help you to navigate the tons and tons of stuff which you are assaulted with when you go on the internet in whatever capacity it is.
And then at the far end, you've got late-stage capitalism and shittification.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got all the full spectrum. The full spectrum of you have a technology and what it can be used for, and what the implementation actually looks like in the real world, depending on who's pulling the strings.
Yeah.
So that was my thing.
Ah, that's a great thing.
Two things.
Two good things, I think. We've got some diversity of things this time.
Yeah. I quite like the pairing of a vague thing and a fairly specific thing. But there's always the ability to find like the higher level themes, if you like.
It's the zooming out is when it gets interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. And I guess that's the thing with a lot of things, is that we get to talk about things.
And we can say sentences that include the word things like 400 times.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe if I just keep saying things.
But I think you should continue to say what you were going to say about the thing about what a lot of things.
Is that we get to zoom out and we get to talk about and think about the higher level themes of technology.
Yeah.
Whereas often you're in the details of it.
Yeah. And that's where we started, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Going for long walks.
And
having long conversations.
Yeah.
And thinking that was interesting.
Maybe we should
record only we recorded it. So we'll never know what we said on those those long walks. And just have the vague emotional residue of it having been interesting.
So how do you get in touch with us at What a Lot of Things?
Well, we have an email address.
We do. What is it?
Nobody sent it any email yet.
We'll offer.
Do you know, off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is.
It was a source of great hilarity, and most suddenly, you remember now.
I don't remember exactly. Is it technologyeos@whatalotofthings.com?
That's exactly it.
I'm embarrassed that my attention span is so short that even though 2 weeks ago I knew what it was because I just typed it into a website to create it, I now can't remember.
So please get in touch.
Please do.
If you've got any thoughts about what we've talked about, or, well, anything really, or you just want to say hi, then please do.
Yes, we would love to hear from you.
We would love that very much.
And we will get the emails because it gets forwarded to both of us.
Yeah, exactly. So we have no excuse.
Oh dear. I mean, no excuse at all.
Yeah, we're accountable to you, the listener,
we are.
And to each other.
We are.
Which is more accountability than I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
I usually don't allow that level of accountability.
No, I think we've said too much. Roll it back.
So all that's left is to say thank you and goodbye.
Thank you and goodbye. Cut!